I can refer to research that shows that children do better when fathers are involved. I'm actually even a little surprised that research has to tell us that.
I always tell dads, you've got to be a squeaky wheel, and I tell that to moms too, but in particular with dads, they don't know their rights a lot of times.
I have seen fathers fighting for their children. I have seen fathers demanding to be heard about their children, and their children need to know that their fathers want them.
That's the whole point of this engagement project, is to try and change practice to where they're thinking about the father on the front end and not just rehabilitating the mother to receive the child back again.
I can't explain the feeling. There's joy in it, then there's confusion. Because if you're not a parent, you're just like, okay, well, what do I need to do?
This is how Billy Jones' story begins. He's 23. He learns he has a child, but the state has custody. Like other men with children in foster care, Billy had no way of foreseeing the journey that lay ahead. The many steps he needed to take if he wanted to be a father and be included in his child's life. And like many men on this path, he often wanted someone to hear his side. When Billy's son Josiah was born with drugs in his system, a caseworker first contacted Billy about his viability as a parent.
I remember Mr. Jones being pretty argumentative. I think he had a lot of just kind of like resentment with the whole thing, like, why am I even here? It's not my fault. I didn't give birth to Josiah. I didn't use all those things his mom did, and now I'm here. I'm the one showing up, and now you guys are still making me jump through the hoops.
My very first meeting, I don't even remember what it was about. Honestly, the first meeting, all I wanted to do was see my child.
Billy didn't have any understanding of the department and how choice decisions are made, how his actions or inactions would affect those decisions.
I think anyone would be frightened to engage in a court system that they may not be familiar with. Fathers also have to deal with paternity issues and child support issues. There could be family court issues as well, maybe even outstanding criminal matters that would prevent them from coming to court for a dependency proceeding. And I think caseworkers need to be aware of those issues that are facing fathers.
Billy did have a criminal record as well as a substance abuse problem. He was also unemployed, and he needed housing to be a viable parental candidate.
What I can say about Mr. Jones is that not having his son was a barrier to him getting housing, and getting housing was a barrier to him having his son. And so that was the catch-22 that I think a lot of fathers, in particular non-custodial fathers, are in.
Over the course of 2 years, Billy was assigned to a number of social workers, and he grew increasingly frustrated.
They didn't assist me with finding the housing. Someone had told me about the program, and I had to explain it. I don't remember who my social worker was at that time. However, they didn't understand how the program functioned.
Billy's case moved slowly, despite the fact that caseworkers described him as extremely committed. But over time, his persistence paid off.
It went like this. I would be having a court date come up, right? Right before that court date, I would get an envelope in the mail full of resources, stamped and dated, so they could go to court and say, well, we've provided Mr. Jones with these resources. Okay, that's true. They did provide them to me. But Your Honor, none of these are even applicable for men.
Billy's case reflected a national trend in the treatment of fathers by child welfare systems. A 2009 study showed that compared to mothers, fathers were 26% less likely to be involved in case planning efforts, and 27% less likely to have their needs assessed.
I think for a number of years, probably since the beginning, the child welfare system has been focused primarily on the mother. That there was an underlying assumption, for whatever reason, that fathers were not a parent of choice, that services were designed to serve the female half of the parenting duo, that fathers were not engaged and didn't want their kids. I have seen the opposite from my position on the bench. We will have to start thinking about how we address the father's needs in terms of parenting. And moms and dads parent differently, so all of that will have to be addressed.
What is this? This isn't boogers, that's a stretch.
I know because my friends must push me down.
After 2 years of involvement with the department, Josiah was placed in his father's care.
You know to get faster than girls will get you.
They didn't. I got loose from them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're lucky.
Yeah.
The girls! He bonded to me immediately. Immediately. Even the social workers will tell you that. It shocked me. I thought things were going to be a little more difficult. Say, take a picture of this. Get a good picture. My life is better than it's ever been.
Billy's story has a happy ending. He has his son, and he's going back to school, where his part-time job is helping students find social services. He hopes to become a social worker himself because he knows that other fathers' stories end much differently than his.
Everything was a lesson. And I think that it just built me in. If I didn't go through the whole process the way I went, I would not be interested in this field. I think he remotivated me to stop contemplating and just do things. Do it. Don't talk about it, do it.
All right. Everybody need everything? We cool? We straight? We ready to get down? First question. How did you get to shared parenting?
Things got involved like drugs and alcohol, and it got bad from there.
So you wanted it to be a family unit?
Yeah,
right?
Definitely, yeah.
Were you using?
Yes, at that time, yes.
So you wanted a family unit and still get high?
Yeah.
How'd that work out for you?
It didn't work out.
Didn't work out. Did it work out for anybody else here?
No.
Huh? Didn't work out for me either.
Billy also received motivation from a fatherhood engagement program like this one. It's a valuable resource to help men learn how to be viable parents.
Billy's case is real unique simply because I was passing him in the hallway and heard him speaking to someone else about the actual case. And so I confronted him and, asked about the case, and he gave me in detail what was going on. Then I forwarded him to the Father Engagement Project, and at that point, we started working with Billy.
He gave me a lot of confidence, and he understood exactly what I was saying. He didn't know my case at that time, but he had seen me and my child's interactions, and he heard my child say, "Daddy, I want to come home with you." He heard that with his own ears.
For Billy, this chance encounter turned into an opportunity to finally tell his story and to be heard. Men who feel they're being listened to become less frustrated and more able to focus on their role in the process.
Well, I think the bigger thing with the father engagement piece is to hear what the father's talking about, understand the travels that he's been through, and not so much give him that advice, but tell him how the system works. The different phases of the system, how your child gets deeper into the system, how you could be seen as a placement option for your child, and provide him with that knowledge and allow him to work with the system, and when I say the system, I mean the social worker, to come up with a plan to get his child back.
I know quite a few of you.
In programs such as these, men also learn that the way they present themselves could be misinterpreted, especially by a female caseworker.
I think a lot of fathers might react with anger, with animosity, with frustration towards the system, and if it is not expressed in a professional way, others within the system, caseworkers, lawyers, judges, might misinterpret that behavior by the father and think, well, wait a minute, we need to explore anger management or other issues, when in fact we're just dealing with an individual that is frustrated and perhaps even frightened by the court system.
There are certain men who present like they're angry. And there are certain men who are really angry and they try to convince you that they're not so angry. In the case of Billy, it was a combination of both. If he felt that his rights were violated, his way of dealing with it was anger, and he felt justified in his anger. On the other hand, his anger wasn't as severe as it looked.
Well, he just told me, keep doing what you're doing, just calm your tone of the voice. My posture sometimes, if I'm frustrated, gets super stiff and my voice gets louder.
The system, I'm sorry to say, isn't designed, it's not father-friendly, period. Even if statutes or the rules say that it should be equal for parents, right? Men understand, as far as their understanding, when they say parents, they mean mother. That's, the universal rule. When they go into the department and they talk to, their caseworker, 9 times out of 10, it will be a woman. And what you found when you watch the group is that they don't deal very well with women. I mean, why would they? Number one, they don't even understand, the importance of a woman. They don't understand. They don't understand what's a proper relationship with a woman. So it's not just their girlfriends or their wives that they got a problem with. They got a problem with the caseworker too, if she's a woman. Now, does this make them bad? No, it just makes them uneducated.
Well, I don't think people are talking about dependency at the barbershop and where men hang out. I don't think they're talking about it at the ballpark or the bar or the racetrack or, down at the park shooting hoops or the places where guys hang out. I don't think people are talking about their CPS case. And so I think that that's part of the problem, is that men don't talk to each other about what's going on with their families the way that women do. And so they just don't know the system.
Billy's fatherhood engagement program offered 20 weeks of classes that offered tools for navigating the family services process, the court system, how to be an effective parent, and many other topics. However, if father programs aren't available, social workers should fill the gap by providing fathers with similar father-friendly information. Here, the men learn that custody proceedings require a team approach, and they need to know their position.
Well, the first thing they're going to do is inform you. You're going to know your roles. You're going to know the phases, the processes. You're going to know some of the biases that you're going to come against, and you get direct experience from hearing it from other men.
Say if you go to court and the social worker only brings the negative reports and doesn't send out the positive reports that have been made, how do you go about addressing that issue?
Well, first of all, you're in court with them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what better representation of you than you? And you have to look at it now as a team concept, okay? You want to be as positive about your teammate as possible, even if they lagging. You threw them the ball, they missed the layup, it caused 2 points not to be had in your favor, but it's like, okay, don't be afraid to come back. And if you see a delay, you ask the question, you guys.
Asking questions is just one of the communication tools the men find helpful. They also appreciate more practical tips, like knowing it's okay for them to take notes on their case to be better prepared advocates for themselves.
Anywhere I go, I have it right, and then I have him sign it, with his name on it, so that way, when I go to back, I didn't sign this, he did. So, it's a testimony to where I've been, what I did, and everything, so it does help.
It can also help to understand what the men can't write down or even express. Their worst fears about how their story will end for them and their children.
The first emotion is fear, but men don't like to admit it. So that fear a lot of time translate as anger. And you've seen where men present themselves in this super tough, macho, I did it my way, and all it is a cover up for absolute fear. They don't have a clue how they're going to get their kids back. Pride.
Pride obstructs you from getting help, from growing.
The plain truth of it is once you start thinking that, A, there's nothing wrong with you, or if there is something wrong with you, you can fix it, you put yourself on an island. You become you. All you by yourself. What does any of this have to do with relationships concerning the department?
Obviously, the state must be involved for a reason because I'm here. So I would think that the sooner I understand, their role and my role, I can go on and get to the next phase of my life.
And to build on that, what everyone else has said, is if I can interact with the state in a positive way, then I think that I can interact with with anyone else in a positive way.
For me, I had to clean house and start from scratch. I had to get rid of person, places, and things. I had to change behavioral attitude. I had to change the way I think. I had to change the way I process things. I had to incorporate every decision to involve my child. So every decision I make now is this, how's this going to affect me and little Manny? That's the way I did it. And I'm not saying I'm fixed, by no means. I'm not saying I'm fixed. I'm just saying that right now it's working for me.
The men in this group are proof that when fathers are told they're valuable to their children, they become much more willing to seek positive change and to be accountable.
The reason why I do this work, the reason why I'm so diligent about it, is because I was fatherless. That's what we're changing. And if we can change it, I've changed it for my son. I'm a father, and I'm there. You're changing it for your kids. That's the change that we're talking about, bottom line. Let that be your motivator. Move from that. Let that be the catalyst to do the work that you're doing. Then all the rest of what you guys are asking about will come. But remember, we have broken the chain of fatherlessness in our own families.
Research also indicates that cases don't take as long to be resolved, that when the fathers are involved, children spend less time in foster care. When fathers are involved, there's lower rates of re-entry into the system after reunification occurs. So all of this tells us that yes, it's not only the right thing to do, it's legally required to involve fathers, but it's truly in the best interest of the child.
It's a factor that we assume that women are, naturally good mothers. We just assume that they have mothering instincts that, even if she's a crackhead, she's, probably a good mother, but just has some drug issues. But the father automatically gets this tag of being incompetent, that he needs, parenting classes, he needs domestic violence, and if he's raised his voice ever at a CPS worker, he also needs, anger management. To that degree, I think we need to chuck the whole system. I think we need to chuck the whole ideal of being able to assess an individual based on, how they're presenting herself under duress.
The contradiction is, I think as a social worker, it's important to know that I'm not assessing somebody's ability to communicate with me or to do it respectfully or to be pleasant. That's not my job. My job is to assess safety and risk. So when people do talk to me in a way that I do not appreciate, I try to listen beyond their words and really hear what they're saying.
I think that social workers need more resources about how to engage and where to engage and when to engage with fathers. A lot of what we're doing as social workers is identifying a source where things can go, and there's not as many resources for fathers as there are for mothers.
It's extremely important to engage fathers because children have fathers. They're not here, they don't get here just with a mother. And when we ignore father, we ignore that relationship, then we ignore paternal grandparents, paternal aunts, cousins, fictive kins. We just cut the child in half, really. And that's just, it's not okay to do.
The social worker is the first line of finding out who the father is. So we need to figure out faster ways of identifying who the fathers are and making sure that their families are involved in this whole process.
And researchers believe that early identification of the father is key. In one study, researchers found that when fathers were identified and located in the first 30 days, 80% were contacted by a social worker. But when fathers were identified more than 30 days after the case was opened, only 13% were contacted. The study also noted that simply contacting fathers is unlikely to affect outcomes for children. Contact should support fathers' engagement or re-engagement in their children's lives.
As we move into a world where the social workers are not viewed as the bad guys come to take the kids away, but as a resource brought to a family to help them keep their children safe and whole, then a part of that is recognizing the entire family. And social workers need to know that skill from the beginning. It makes all of our jobs easier.
That team approach is a beautiful analogy, and it really is kind of I think the heart of the dependency court process system. Ideally, it has a common goal, not of plaintiff versus defendant or one side versus another, but everyone working together to identify a suitable plan for the children.
If we don't do something about how we perceive men immediately, the kids are going to suffer more dramatically, because in this day and age it would appear that our kids are missing something. They're missing something. And I'm not saying that mothers are bad. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that men are more valuable than I think, and this isn't a department thing. I think this is a worldview thing, especially an American thing, that men are more important than we're given credit for, you know. And so I think the department has a chance to really be trendsetters when it comes to raising the bar for men and bringing them to a level of prominence.
I grew up in foster care, you know. I got taken from my parents when I was 6, and I know what it's like to grow up in the system, you know, because the only thing you think about is you want your real family, you know, and I know that's what my son wants, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to get him back.
Being a father is everything to me, you know, because throughout my teenage years, you know, I was in gangs and so forth and so on. So when I had my son, and the first time I held him in my arms, I knew right then and there I needed to change. The things that I was doing, the environment, and so forth and so on. So they made me who I am today.
I think Father's Engagement has pretty much helped me focus on working on me, because without working on me, nothing else would have worked. You know, none of this would have happened. I would not have gotten my kid back.
Yeah, she's just changed my life. I'm just so grateful for her. I wake up daily. Both your shoes just fell off. How do we do that? You know, I wake up daily and I'm just so grateful to have her in my life.
It caused me to step up and take responsibility and keep taking responsibility. Just him there, his presence, you know, is a constant reminder of we can do this, Dad. You know, this is something that this is something I want to do. My line is straightforward, you know. I might come across some hurdles, but I'm not going to take a step back.
I used to say before the situation happened, I don't care if I have a kid, I'm not gonna do nothing. But what did I do? I called the prosecutor's office more times than anyone to get the test. So it just change happens at random times, random places, different people.
If we come with the premise that some people really don't want their kid, then we don't give them the opportunity to prove otherwise. If we start from the premise that everyone wants their kid, then we will leave it up to the individual to prove it otherwise.